Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com, setting the record straight about climate. I have a couple of interesting climate news items to talk about today. It's been really cold in most of the United States for the last 6 weeks. This map from the NOAA High Plains Regional Climate Center shows the departure from normal temperature since October 1st. As you can see, most of the country has been far below normal temperature since the beginning of October. And much of the country is seeing a record early ski season as a result of the record cold and snow. I graphed out the October 1st to November 15 average maximum temperature for all United States Historical Climatology Network stations. The graph begins in 1895, and you can see from the trend line that temperatures have been going down in the United States during this period since the 19th century. Temperatures were increasing until the early 1960s, but then there was a huge drop, and temperatures have never recovered again since then. All the data isn't in yet for this year, but from the data that's currently available, this year will be the third coolest on record. It's likely that as more data comes in, 2019's temperatures will decline some. October 1st to November 15 last year, 2018, was the second coolest on record, slightly warmer than 1925. So this is the second autumn in a row with the United States seeing near record cold. This next graph is very similar. It shows the October 1st to November 15 percent of days above 60 degrees Fahrenheit at all United States Historical Climatology Network stations. And once again you can see that the last 2 years were among the coolest on record. This year's number is likely to go down a lot as more data comes in. So is the Washington Post reporting on the near record cold in the United States? Well, of course not. They're reporting on propaganda about global temperatures instead. Earth sizzles through October as another month ranks as the warmest on record. Now let's look at why the Washington Post wants to ignore U.S. temperatures. This map is from NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. It shows the locations where they have daily temperature data from the period 1891 to 1920. As you can see, the vast majority of data is from the United States. They have some stations in Western Europe, some in parts of Australia, and Japan has fairly good coverage too. But most of the Earth has little or no long-term, high-quality temperature data. By using a tremendous amount of detail in their maps, NOAA makes it look like the data is very precise. But the reality is that a large percentage of this data is simply fabricated from computer models. Obviously, the Washington Post would rather look at the fake warm temperatures for most of the rest of the world than the very cold temperatures here in the United States. We don't have good long-term temperature data for most of the Earth, but we do have proxies like snow. Northern Hemisphere autumn snow cover has been increasing for nearly 55 years. And the last decade has had the highest autumn snow cover on record. Increasing autumn snow cover indicates that Arctic air is encroaching closer to the equator than it used to. That's a pretty strong hint that autumn temperatures around the northern hemisphere have been decreasing. But as is normally the case, climate scientists choose to ignore the real data and use fake data from their computer models instead. And simultaneously, they're talking out of both sides of their mouth. In the same news cycle, they'll claim that Earth is heating out of control and also blame the record cold on global warming. Classic Orwellian doublespeak. Now we're going to look for Greta Thunberg. All these little yellow icons on the map show the current locations of airplanes flying around the world. Or at least that's where they were at the time I captured the map. Tens of thousands of plane flights every day carry millions of travelers all over the world. Greta Thunberg needs to get from the United States to Spain in the next 2 weeks in order to attend a climate conference in Madrid. But she refuses to fly on an airplane because she thinks that if she fills an empty seat on an airplane, it'll cause some sort of climate catastrophe. So instead, she's traveling across the Atlantic on an expensive yacht. The red dot on this map shows the current position of the yacht. The yacht is located right out in front of a large Atlantic cyclone. In a few hours, Greta will be dealing with gale force winds and thunderstorms. It's got to be pretty rough out there, and she probably wishes that she'd taken an airplane a few days ago and gotten to Spain in 6 hours. But this child is being used for propaganda. This voyage Greta has embarked on is very dangerous. If her handlers were concerned about her well-being, they would have advised her to take an airplane rather than taking this dangerous voyage. If anything bad happens to her or she misses the conference because of the rough weather, odds are her handlers will simply blame the bad weather on climate change. What kind of unethical people would use a child for propaganda like this? Would you let your 16-year-old daughter try to travel across the Atlantic in a small boat in rough seas during November? Probably not. How dare they do this to a 16-year-old child? Visit Toto on the web at realclimatescience.com. He's been pulling back the curtain on junk science and propaganda for a long time.